In 1961, the trial of Adolf Eichmann in Jerusalem drew the world's attention. Eichmann, a key organizer of the Nazi regime's final solution, had fled Germany after the war and lived in Argentina under a false identity until he was captured by Mossad agents and brought to Israel for trial. Yet beyond the legal and political spectacle of the courtroom, it was the report by political philosopher Hannah Arendt, Eichmann in Jerusalem, a report on the banality of evil, that turned this event into a deep moral and philosophical investigation. Arendt, herself a Jewish refugee who had fled Nazi Germany and settled in the United States, attended the trial as a correspondent for The New Yorker. Her analysis sparked a wave of criticism, not only for her portrayal of Eichmann's character, but also for her controversial remarks about the role of Jewish councils during the Holocaust. Still, at the heart of her book lies a disturbing insight that evil does not always arise from monsters, but sometimes from people who are painfully ordinary. Unlike notorious figures like Himmler or Goebbels, Eichmann wasn't an impassioned ideologue. He was a mid-level bureaucrat at the Reich Main Security Office, RSA, responsible for coordinating the deportation of Jews. His role wasn't direct killing, but logistical management, scheduling trains, preparing lists, liaising with local officials, all in the service of transporting millions of human beings to their deaths with mechanical precision. What disturbed Arendt the most was Eichmann's sheer ordinariness. He was polite, spoke in cliches, and avoided self-reflection. He never questioned what he was doing. His defense in court was as chilling as it was simple. I was only following orders. Arendt wasn't arguing that he was innocent. Far from it. She insisted his guilt was of a new and terrifying kind, one rooted not in hatred or cruelty, but in thoughtlessness. Eichmann wasn't a sadist. He was someone who had abandoned moral judgment altogether. Someone who had stopped thinking. This is where Arendt introduced her now famous concept, the banality of evil. She argued that evil acts in history aren't always committed by madmen, fanatics, or ideological zealots. Sometimes they're carried out by ordinary obedient people who commit atrocities simply because they refuse to think critically about what they're doing. Eichmann didn't see victims, he saw procedures. He talked about efficiency, not ethics. He replaced conscience with compliance. This idea shook public opinion. Many had wanted Eichmann to be a monster, something other than human, but Arendt showed that evil can emerge from people who willingly give up moral responsibility. People like us. Psychiatrists who examined Eichmann before his execution found him neither insane nor sadistic. He was mentally sound. He showed no remorse, but also no deep-seated hatred. To his family and neighbors, he appeared to be a calm, responsible man, a father, a husband, a loyal employee. This contrast between the horrifying consequences of his actions and his normal appearance was disturbing. Evil doesn't always wear a monstrous face. Sometimes it wears a suit, signs paperwork, and returns home at 5. After World War II, Eichmann escaped to Argentina under the alias Ricardo Clement. He lived there for years in anonymity until Mossad agents tracked him down and in 1960 secretly abducted him and brought him to Jerusalem. The trial was a historical milestone. For the first time, Holocaust survivors gave public testimony. The world confronted the true scale of Nazi crimes, and this time, unlike the Nuremberg trials held by Allied powers, it was the Jewish state that enacted justice in a court of its own before the eyes of the world. Following the publication of her book, Arendt faced harsh criticism, especially from Jewish communities. One key point of contention was her critique of the Jewish councils, Judenräte, organizations that, under immense pressure, had cooperated with the Nazis in organizing deportations. Arendt argued that without such cooperation, there might have been more resistance and disruption. Some critics felt that Arendt had painted Eichmann in overly human tones, as if she were trying to soften or excuse his crimes. But her goal was never justification, it was understanding. She wanted to explore how and why evil becomes possible in the modern world, not to absolve the man responsible for it. Nevertheless, the backlash was swift and personal. Arendt was accused of lacking empathy, even of betraying her own people. She received hate mail, lost many longtime friends, and became a deeply polarizing figure. Yet over time, her analysis came to be recognized as one of the most important contributions to 20th century moral philosophy. For Arendt, thinking wasn't just an intellectual activity, it was a deeply moral act. To think meant to pause, to reflect, to question, to judge. She believed that Eichmann's evil stemmed from his refusal to engage in this process. She famously wrote, "The sad truth is that most evil is done by people who never make up their minds to be good or evil." In her view, totalitarian regimes don't require monsters. They require obedient, thoughtless followers. People who never ask why. People who follow orders with blind efficiency. And it is this lack of thinking that allows evil to operate quietly and effectively in the modern age. Arendt also made a sharp distinction between punishment and forgiveness. In her eyes, Eichmann was not beyond redemption because he was the embodiment of evil, but because he flatly refused to take responsibility. She could not forgive him, not because of what he did, but because of his total lack of judgment. He never truly grasped the weight of his actions. His defense was always external. It was the system, the orders, my superiors. But real responsibility begins when a person can say, "Yes, I did this, and I understand the moral weight of what I've done." Eichmann never said that. And this, Arendt believed, was the real lesson. Not just about him, but about us. About every citizen, every worker, every official who chooses, each day, whether to obey or to resist. One of the most haunting aspects of Arendt's work is how it redefines moral responsibility. Her critique isn't just aimed at one man or even one regime. It's a critique of entire systems that demand unthinking obedience, bureaucratic structures, cultural norms, economic and political hierarchies, all of which can help produce people like Eichmann. She invites us to look beyond Nazi Germany and ask whether modern systems elsewhere might carry the same seeds of silent complicity. Eichmann in Jerusalem is not just a historical account. It is a philosophical alarm bell. Arendt teaches us that modernity, with all its efficiency and structure, can enable evil to unfold quietly, invisibly, and even legally. Obeying the rules isn't enough. Just doing your job isn't enough. We must think, we must judge, we must resist when it becomes necessary. The trial of Eichmann was never just about one man. It was a mirror, held up to a society, and to each one of us. Thanks for watching.